Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for the first episode of Let's Talk Chelsea in 2022. Chelsea are world champions. If you haven't seen my review of the FIFA Club World Cup final, it's up on the channel now. Thank you for the positive response and comments to it already. Dissecting the game, thinking about the game, obviously writing about the game for Football London. The link will be in the description box below. I've wrote a few pieces that are out today and some for tomorrow that will be coming out surrounding the game. Some of the big talking points, Lukaku, Kai Havertz, Christian Pulisic's new position under Tuchel potentially, and Cesar Azpilicueta. So there's a lot of written content coming up on Football London from myself. But I wanted to make a news video today because this article that came out from Matt Law, I think it's very telling that it comes out on Sunday, the day after this final, that we're going to get into. I kind of had to react to it because Matt Law, I have tons of respect for in terms of his legitimacy, in terms of his reporting for Chelsea, which is near spot on always. And I think the fact that this report has dropped now, I think says a lot about the direction of the club. And I think there's a lot to discuss and get into and probably what a lot of people have wanted. But I don't think it's a simple conversation just right now. I do think there are things to break down further that we're going to get into. As you can see here from Matt Law in The Telegraph, Chelsea to back Thomas Tuchel and sustained Premier League title bid with summer investment. The club were impressed that Tuchel did not use COVID and injuries as an excuse to push for unnecessary January signings. Tuchel won his third trophy since succeeding Frank Lampard just over a year ago. There's a lot of information. Please go in the description box below the link to this article. Please go and read the full article. It kind of goes into obvious things that we all kind of know. These are not, I don't think anything that Matt Law, to respect him, he's talking about here is breaking news or things that at least as fans we've discussed. So Antonio Rudiger, his contract offer, the latest contract offer, is he going to sign that contract? How big of a deal is it for him to sign that contract? Then it's also about potential player sales this summer. Even Kepa Arrizabalaga, Chelsea preparing for bids, and sort of because his reputation has grown this season. Then, of course, the massive targets, the likes of Aurelien Tchouameni, Declan Rice, Jules Koundé, and potentially others, and also the future of some kind of key attacking players. So there's a lot in there to digest. And also, as the first thing I sort of mentioned from the article, is how the club have been impressed by Tuchel's demeanour. And I think that's the first thing, because I have been impressed by the way he's handled this. I got a question last week about this kind of subject, how we've come out of the winter crisis. If we have, technically we're only a few weeks away, in my opinion. I know on the dates and the calendars, officially in the UK, winter ends at a certain point. But I feel like once you get into March, in my head, winter kind of goes from November or kind of late November it is in a football term. And when it gets really difficult, the slog of the season is kind of from late November to kind of late February. And I think once you get into March, especially you get closer to that international break that then goes into Easter, you are in a different period of the season. So we're coming up to that now, and Tuchel could end it in the best way possible. We've already won the Club World Cup. He could win the Carabao Cup as well, which would be an astonishing start to 2022. It really couldn't. Still in the FA Cup, got a good draw in the fifth round now. The Champions League, you'd hope Chelsea can at least get through to the last date of that competition. So I do agree. He's had things that have made this season awkward to speak about because he had two key injuries. One for the season in Ben Chilwell and also Reece James in the Brighton game at the back end of last year that really made the team look a lot different when we were flying in November. You think about that Juventus performance in particular, Ben Chilwell landing awkwardly at 4-0 up. Is that a sliding door moment of the season? I think it probably is. You don't know what the team would have looked like, but the frustrating thing is you've got those things. You've got the fixture congestion, you've got COVID, which decimated the squad, and the unfair or at least hypocritical nature of the way the Premier League has dealt with cancelling games. All of those things are true. There are consistent things within the squad that we have seen that have been frustrations in the past that I don't think are unfair to bring up. So I don't think you can just wash away all the criticisms. But particularly the way Tuchel has handled a number of things has been really impressive. The Lukaku situation, the way he came out of that situation looking a lot stronger than what was anticipated, or at least what was feared when the Lukaku interview broke. And all hell broke loose on Chelsea social media that weekend before the Liverpool game. So there's that. I do think, as I said to Adam Newson, and please go and watch that two-part discussion because Adam gives some great points in terms of, we touch a lot of this actually. The title of the video, the first part, is backing Tuchel, so it's kind of we're hitting this kind of subject right on with this. it's player sales for me, I think, are the first kind of big thing that I have to kind of look towards here. As much as we want players to come in, Chelsea have to be ruthless, I think, in terms of letting players go, or at least Marina Granovskaya being able to let players go for not the perfect fee, because there are some players in the squad that we just aren't going to get a perfect fee for. But there are some players I think need to go, either because it's varying things, isn't it? I look at a player like Marcos Alonso, who wasn't in the starting lineup yesterday. I think that was quite telling. Who I think they're past their expiry date. I don't think they can offer anything more to Chelsea, and I think clinging on to players as well on big wages too, I don't think is helping the squad, and I think it limits Tuchel's option. If I can replace a Marcos Alonso with a Marc Cucurella, who's been linked to Chelsea recently, or another player, Borna Sosa from Stuttgart, or just a younger version of that player that is more suited to, say, a Ben Chilwell profile that suits what Ben Chilwell does. You're never going to find a Ben Chilwell alternative, but someone who, at the very least, like Tsimikas has for Jurgen Klopp, or the loads of fullback options that Guardiola has. So there's that. And just some players that have just been on the books for too long, like Ross Barkley, and obviously Ruben, we felt was having a little bit of a rehabilitation under Tuchel, but it really hasn't worked out like that, especially since Tuchel has got kind of his senior midfielders back fit. So you kind of feel like this could be the end for Ruben, unfortunately. Then you get the targets. The three main targets, I think, are all brilliant targets. Jules Koundé, Tchouaméni, Rice. I've spoken about this before. Please go and watch the Adam video. And I've written a lot about this too. Why I think they're perfect targets. I think they're versatile, multifaceted, athletic. I think players that all suit what Tuchel wants to do. And as I mentioned at the start, versatile. I want versatile players at Chelsea. I don't want specialist players anymore. I think we've gone down that alley before, and it's caused Chelsea a lot of problems. You want players who aren't limited by one formation. You want players, not just because of what Tuchel as a coach wants to do with this squad, I think, and the type of coach he is, but also because of the nature of Chelsea Football Club, the modus operandi, the fact that we know that there is a likelihood at the current point as I speak here in Feb 2022 that Tuchel won't be here forever. So you want players that then when we move on to the next regime, aren't suddenly surplus to requirements or aren't really awkward players for that coach to have to deal with. So there's that. So I think the targets, from what I've heard, I think the concern is for me is attacking targets, because we kind of haven't heard any major ones at the moment because we've got so many attackers other than Ousmane Dembele. Because the realistic thing is one player, at least one of these players has to go out. So, and then I'm kind of asking a similar question. It's the profile of attacker we're bringing in. Why are we bringing in that player? What is the plan for that player? How do they work with the attackers we've already got? How are they going to implement the system? Can they be versatile themselves? Big questions to ask on that, and how are we going to get a more prolific attack? That's the big question for next season, especially. He also mentioned Matt Law, Conor Gallagher coming back. This is the same with Mando Broja. If you watch Broja against Man United, you're like, if we sell Broja, if we sell Gallagher, very, very silly moves in my opinion, particularly Gallagher, goal-scoring midfielder. I don't care that there's not a role for him, an obvious role in the team for him at the moment. Either we change formation enough so he can have a role, or he plays somewhere in the squad. I think he is a good enough player to fit in this squad. Mason Mount has proved that he doesn't have to play as a number 8 all the time, but he can still be very, very effective under Thomas Tuchel. And the final two things, I think Rudiger's contract, I think we have to seal it if we can, especially with Christensen's future being so up in the air. Given, I think this could be the perfect time to end Cesar Azpilicueta's Chelsea story as well. On the left side of the fence, the form that Rudiger's been in, I thought he was brilliant again last night, especially defensively. You want to keep him too. So big decisions. And I also think the last thing Tuchel pointed out was Lukaku, and kind of the political situation of Chelsea's club record signing. At the moment, as I say, as we speak, after the Club World Cup, I think it was a very positive week for Lukaku. He scored 2 goals in 2 games, important goals. I think he looked a lot better. I think he improved a lot in the final, and especially after he scored the first goal against Al Hilal, I think he grew in confidence. So there's optimism there, isn't there? If he can have a really, really strong end to the season, you can never confirm anything in football, but you get the sense that winning a trophy, his first trophy at Chelsea, as a Chelsea player, scoring a big goal in a cup final, the fact that Didier was there too, I think there's something very powerful about seeing him and Didier in a photo together. Yes, it's just a photo after a game, but you'd hope that that's going to spark some more connection. maybe people feeling a little bit more positive about Lukaku if he starts banging in the goals consistently now for the rest of the season, and the attack looks a lot more just consistent, and just I guess even just you can trust them on a weekly basis to produce. Just competent. That's the word I was looking for. Competent is kind of my big thing, at least for the rest of the season, because it really hasn't been that this year. Then we can go into the summer feeling a lot more positive about Rom, and there isn't this big saga of him potentially having to move on and what are we going to do with him. You don't want any more questions about the attack. You don't want these big looming questions over where we're going to play this guy, how we're going to get the best out of him. Chelsea aren't going to win a Premier League title like that anymore. We aren't going to be able to overthrow Man City or compete with Liverpool if we go into next season, or we spend large periods of next season just having absolutely no clue who the best attack is. That really needs to be fixed. No Premier League title bid. It's the same in central midfield in terms of having that robust, dynamic midfield for 38 games. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of the article itself, you could criticize and say, is it groundbreaking information? It's a lot of stuff we've discussed, but I remember back in May, June time, I think it was May, I think it was even a few days after the Champions League, when we had a similar article from Matt Law and other trusted sources about the plans for the summer, quite obviously. And although there is a lot to go this season, you want to see plans being made, because it does kind of get the feeling, at least to me, this is going to be a massive summer for Chelsea. It really is. I think it's not just in terms of what happens next season. I think it's for the future, the next 3 or 4, 5 years at Stamford Bridge, in terms of the way the squad's going to look, in terms of where are we committing. There's some contracts for players who aren't coming up this summer, but next summer, some very huge players like N'Golo Kante and Jorginho. You've got to make a massive call. You really do. And not all those calls I think are going to be popular, but I think some have to be made for the betterment of the squad. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I just want to quickly, the only set, it's not really a story, but the second story I was going to bring up today, because I've got the photo right in front of me here, and I wanted to speak about it in a video just very briefly for you guys. The kit leak. Obviously, Footy Headlines is always spot on about this, but we've had an actual physical look at Chelsea's next home kit. You guys probably know, if you've been watching the channel a long time, I am very cynical and very negative about most kits now. I don't like them. I don't like the current home kit. I really want to get the gold badge, but then it's on that home kit and I don't want to buy that home kit. This, as you see on screen now, it's so close to being a brilliant kit. It is so close. It's a lot better than this season's offering. It's not just a complete mess. It's a competent kit. But it's that kind of light blue, whatever it is on the collar, that makes it look like, crayon's been, if that is just a plain collar, it's almost a perfect kit. It's very close to some of my favourite Chelsea kits. The pattern of it almost looks like one of the old Adidas kits. I like it. I think it's the more simplistic you can make a kit, especially a home kit, I think the better. So I am a lot more optimistic about this one than previous ones from Nike. I mean, I'm not quite sure about the away and third kit. We'll have to see on that, but if you're getting the home kit right, I think that's the main thing. And some of the gear they've released recently, in terms of I think there's some Champions League special stuff that they're doing, because it is the 10-year anniversary this May, has looked pretty good too. So good start. I hope Nike continue this, because me and Jay McIntosh were not happy, as I think other people weren't, about last season's kit, this season's kit, which was such a mess. So this looks like a slight improvement. So just wanted to give you a bit of that, a bit silly, but whatever, what we've been discussing today, but I wanted to give you my reaction. So give your reactions as well in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you again very soon.